Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Standards Education Talks. My name is Natasha Tai, and I will be your host for today. And joining me is Ben Keeling, Principal of Shrewsbury International School, Hong Kong, as well as Shrewsbury's Early Stage Leader Aileen and Key Stage 1 Leader Ellie. So thank you kindly for joining me today. So Ben, what kind of specific advantages are there at a school campus that's exclusively designed for the occupation of young students?
Look, I think the first thing to recognise is that this is a really safe space, a very nurturing space, a very nourishing space for young people. The children that attend Shrewsbury International School are all young, and they are able to interconnect with other young people, and their experiences, the opportunities that we afford them, are prioritised above anything else, essentially. So we offer a nurturing space, but the space itself has also been designed for them and is used by them. A very critical distinction. We've got lots of schools in the region who are sometimes occupied by young children, but the spaces that they afford those young children are perhaps limited or not ideally utilised by young bodies, small people. The spaces that you find here are well utilised and designed, well utilised by and designed for young people exclusively. The opportunity for children to take up leadership positions at a relatively young age. The majority of schools in Hong Kong, of course, are through train organisations, which means that schools necessarily look to their eldest when they're looking to nominate spokespeople, representatives. Well, that's an opportunity denied to younger learners. So when we look for spokespeople and designated leaders among the student population, they're only 8 or 9 or 10. And that brings a great sense of enrichment to the life of that young person. To be seen and identified, we've spoken to some young children earlier on this afternoon, those children will benefit from that engagement. They may have found it perhaps challenging or new or exciting or surprising or what have you, but there's a great deal of benefit in being selected and working through the journey of being identified as a potential spokesperson in an organisation. So that would be another distinct advantage for me.
And I think that the majority of the students who start their life at Shrewsbury at the age of 3, right, which is incredibly young. So Aileen, how do you make sure that the children and their parents settle in quickly and comfortably?
Well, first of all, is the experience of our early years teachers and how fantastic they are at helping not only just the students, but also the parents settle into school life with a lot of communication, either through email, meeting them each morning, or when they pick them up, or even we use different apps to send them photos of how their child's day is going.
See, and Ellie, as Key Stage 1 leader, I understand that you work with children who are entering the primary section, which is a completely different stage. So what kind of differences might students observe at this stage in their education?
Yeah, so what we do a lot is we build on that really good practice from EY, and we implement some of those pedagogical or teaching and learning approaches within our Year 1 and Year 2 curriculums. And this allows children to really build on their strengths that they've secured during their early years time with us, but look at stretching themselves independently, stretching themselves within tasks within the classroom, and utilising a variety of learning spaces to really build on that education and look into the next step within primary school.
And I believe that Year 1 is the second most common entry point, right? So how do you build on Aileen's approach in the early years?
So we use very similar techniques. We look at communication with parents. We make sure that we email. We have communication diaries where we write notes if it's a small thing to share. We've got apps that we use as well. We also make sure that when we've got new children joining us, they come in for a meeting with the teacher, they have a school tour, they look at the spaces around them that they're going to be using so they feel comfortable and familiar with that when they first start with us.
See, that sounds incredibly informative. Ben, what about the parents? Is there anything they should be considering when their children goes from early years to the primary section?
Well, the journey from early years to primary is quite unique in that it moves a child from one programme of study to another. So we're a British school, we utilise the English national curriculum, but also the early years foundation stage framework. And they are complementing, but systemically different programmes of study, in that primarily the early years framework is entirely play-centred, and the English national curriculum is more, I suppose, formulaic and standardised in its approach. It offers a series of learning intentions, learning objectives that children move through that are deemed to be developmentally appropriate. So there is inevitably an experience of change for both the child and the student, for the child and the parent, sorry. And actually sometimes that change and that feeling of change can be helpful. It's important that children feel elevated as they move through the school, and our aim isn't to necessarily eradicate that feeling of transition, but it is to support the child through that phase of transition. And Aileen and Ellie work very well together to make sure that there are a sufficient number of similarities between the experiences that children enjoy in EY, in the early years section of the school, and as they then transit through to year one, Ellie, I know, can talk very passionately about continuous provision, for instance, as an increasingly common feature of a child's life and journey through the school, but without necessarily or without unnecessarily protecting them or shielding them from the process of growing up, which inevitably brings more challenge, a greater degree of demand on their own self-control and self-direction and independence as they move through the school.
Then, with Shrewsbury entering its 5th academic year, I have to ask, what are your fondest memories, and what do you think will happen in the next 5 years?
I have a lot of quite stressful memories, to be frank, of 5 years gone by. In fact, I've been now with the school for, it will be 6 years in about a month. So I was part of the pre-operation team, so I was working for a long time with the school, but without the building. And I remember that time as being incredibly challenging, immensely challenging, the journey of moving from what was a car park essentially on our campus site up to the building that we're in today. So a stressful and demanding journey, but incredibly privileged, most significantly privileged through the appointment of people like this. You know, I work with an incredible team. I've always worked with an incredible team. We're lucky enough to still have many of our founding staff with us, and Aileen is a member of our founding team. Ellie joined shortly thereafter. And all the way through our journey, as privileged as I've always felt to have been able to guide the designation of the construct of the building and work with the architectural team, and we've got brilliantly passionate investors and we've got a fantastic governing body. This all is a great sense of privilege and advantage for us as a school, but by far and away the most important part of my job is finding great people to work with our children. And we have 2 with us today. There are many, many more at the school, and there have been many over the course of time, people that are so unashamedly committed to the lives and the betterment of young individuals. Our team is so passionate, and the vast majority of my more positive memories come as a result of those relationships. The unearthing of real talent and the nurturing of real talent. And then you watch, in days gone by, I was also a teacher. And I used to love working with young people and watching them grow and develop and thrive. Now I'm less attached directly to life in the classroom, but my greatest point of pride and interest is still in nurturing and watching people grow and improve. The people I now work more often with are grown up, but the joy is the same. The joy of finding someone who you see great potential in, nurturing that potential and watching them grow over the course of time and thrive and develop and mature in their own sense of self and their impact on the world around them is immense. So yes, some very, very challenging times early on. I think anyone who has been involved in the foundation of a school or a business or an organisation will tell you it's not an easy process, but it is an enriching process and a valuable process, and I'm extremely grateful for having had that experience. My fondest memories, however, all connect to the people I've been able to work with.
I love how there's such a dedicated team at Shrewsbury. So is there anything else this lovely team would like to share with our audience?
For me, I think it's the 3-year-olds. Everyone in the school, all the students can get the opportunity to access all areas of the entire school. The 3-year-olds in my class, for example, they come to the library, they experience, they know that this is their place to be able to choose books by themselves independently, and really giving that power to 3-year-olds to say, to understand that their decisions or their actions are very carefully listened to, as well as having the opportunity to do things like swimming every week, even from 3 years old. Having fantastic specialist teachers such as music teachers, PE teachers, all of this enriches their lives, their parents' lives, all of us.
For me personally, one of the things that I really value when working here is the open and the welcoming nature of everyone around the school community. So not just individual teachers, but also the children themselves and support staff. And it means that, you know, having worked in year one for a number of years, some schools, they move up to year two, you don't really see those children, and you kind of, that your involvement in that learning journey has kind of diminished. Whereas I think here, because it's so open and welcoming and such a nurturing space, there's children that I maybe taught when I first started that I still see in the corridors that say hello, or if I'm on a break time duty, they'll come up and tell me what they've been learning about, and there's still that connection and that communication across all levels of the school. And I think that that is something that is very valuable, that I think is quite rare to find as well.
Ellie, I wonder whether that's partly because everyone employed in this organisation is similarly committed.
Yeah.
None of us are particularly worried about IB schools. None of us are particularly worried about formalised academic attainment in that sort of certified way that inevitably teachers of 15, 16 and 17-year-olds need to be. We are far more interested in holistic education, in the education of young people very broadly. You know, we're talking about, you know, academic education. Well, of course we're interested in that. I mean, Ellie leads reading across the school, very passionate about reading development and reading attainment. But we're also interested in the non-academic education of children. That is about their linguistic fluency. It's about their sense of self, their sense of purpose, their sense of ambition. It's about the relationships that they share with other children, but also with adults themselves, and the advantages of our investment in them as micro-communicators and developers of networks of relationships moving through the school. So that common investment, I think, breeds that sense of transparency, that sense of common endeavour, common drive, common journeying as a group of children and a group of adults, essentially working together, striving together to do the same job, the same thing. We all have a great and deep appreciation for, one, the benefit of holistic education, investment in young people as people, not only students, but students also. We all share that commitment. And Aileen, you spoke, touching upon that, you spoke a little bit there about access. Well, access, one, is useful, but it's also an indicator. You know, the fact that every child in this school benefits from access to everything, you know, aquatics, sure, Chinese, yes, music lessons, drama, time in the auditorium, you know, basically everyone benefits from everything. One, that's an advantage to the child, because of course the 3-year-old still swim, the 3-year-old still performs in the auditorium. So there's a sort of very direct advantage, but there's also the implicit advantage. The implicit advantage and the implicit message here is, you matter. Your experience matters. You count. You're as important at 3 as you are at 10, as you will be at 20. Your voice matters, your experience matters, the opportunities we afford you matter. Everyone in this organisation is of equitable value. Their voice is important, needs to be heard, they're enabled and trusted to do well. And so I think the atmosphere and energy that you've described to some degree comes from the very premise, the very fact that we are a primary school. And it's worth noting, going back to memories of pre-operation, we were given an opportunity to open a through-train school here, and we opted against it. And we opted against it because through-train education on a single campus site, specifically, comes with, we believe, far more compromises to be made than gains to be won. And the compromises are almost exclusively subsumed by the youngest children. And those are compromises, as far as the people I work with, people of high ambition, their compromise is too far. The Shrewsbury name is associated with education of a certain standard. And we felt collectively as a group that the level of compromise that might surround single campus through train education was just too much. And what we really wanted to do was offer a level of education, a standard of education, a type of education that one was truly unique to the region and standard setting. And this is what we've accomplished. And I can speak on that very directly because I visited the vast majority of schools in Hong Kong. I've lived in the region for nearly a decade. We see our children thriving in other settings now, having graduated. And I know and understand the limitations of others. And I know the opportunities and advantages that we're able to afford young people, particularly. And we also hear through our parent body of that unique advantage. I mean, we're based here in 𝗚𝘂𝗃𝗀𝗁, not that far from Central, right? 30 minutes, 35 minutes, something like that. So we've got the 𝗚𝘂𝗃𝗀𝗁 link bridge coming very soon. So we're in 𝗚𝘂𝗃𝗀𝗁, a journey from Central. But people travel further. People travel from Southside, Pot Fu Lam. People come from Sha Tin. Why travel so far? There is only one reason, and it's because we offer something that no one else offers. So if you do visit us as a parent or as a child, and you fall in love with the notion that young people will be prioritised, and the interactions and the experiences and the relationships that young people share will be prioritised. If you believe that that's important, and I do, I believe that's really important, if you do, there is only one place for you, and it's here. So you either move or travel. And some families move, and some families travel.
Thank you, Ben, Aileen, and Ellie for sharing with us today. And thank you all for joining us at today's Education Talk. We hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.